Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. And today, I'm so happy. We have a guest from across the pond, as we like to say over here in the United States, James Fowl. Thank you so much, James, for joining me today. How are you?
Very well, Christina. Very well indeed. It's been a while since you and I were in contact. I know that every time I speak to you, there's some sort of drama or something going on. And whether it's good or bad, there's always a smile on your face, and it brings one to mind, which is, just always interesting. So look, thanks very much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So for our viewers and listeners, because as you know, we do the same thing as you do on your podcast. We record and then we also show on our YouTube channel the actual video. Why don't you tell everybody about yourself, and perhaps why don't you let them all know how we know each other?
Sure. So look, as you've introduced me kindly, my name's James Fowl. I am one of the founders of a recruiting staffing business called Huxley Morton. I guess I wasn't always in the world of recruitment. I guess in my early 20s, I was more of a sportsman, athlete. I was on the British boxing team, so traveled around the world doing boxing and keeping fit, etc. Found myself at the end of my career, early 20s. It sounds crazy to say that was your end of your career, but getting into business and, wanting to locate myself in the city of London to, throw myself into work. At the time, it was always sales, because that was my nature, just out and out competition. I couldn't see myself necessarily doing a job where I just turned up, put in the hours, went home. There always had to be some form of competition. And the fact that you get compensated by performance was just right up my street. I was like, okay, this is for me. Absolutely loved working in the city. Did that quite successfully for, quite a lot of years. Was always a top performer on the sales board. And then fell into recruitment, where I was recruiting engineering expats to fly literally all around the world. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, developing countries where they needed to build their infrastructure. And I guess I almost got a name for myself as the British guy who had access to all the British and European expertise. So all of these companies from around the world would, call me up or send me emails. And I just built a huge network that was kind of global of, just expats everywhere that would tell me stories about the food in one country, the best things to do. And I just kind of fell in love with it because you're just dealing with people. Sometimes the best thing about working in recruitment is the people. Sometimes the worst thing about working in recruitment is the people, right? But then I think more recently, and to bring us kind of up to speed as to today, the pandemic hit. So at that point, a business that relies on international travel and expats jetting off around the world, when everyone was locked down, doesn't really exist. So my business that I'd built up for 5 years fell off the side of a cliff. Clients, were cancelling deals for people to come in. And I kind of just thought, oh, shit, what do we do here? But fortunately, one of our guys had worked in the world of clinical research recruitment previously. And he explained to me how a clinical trial project is almost structured in the same way that a construction project was. And I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, so you're telling me that a clinical project manager is kind of the same as a construction project manager, and then a CRA is the same as a resident engineer? I was like, this is like layman's terms for recruitment. It's kind of tick the boxes, match the keywords. I was like, this is unbelievable. And I was like, fine, look, we've got no other option. I don't want to be furloughing staff, shutting down as a business. And I certainly don't want to be going back to, a day job, working a 9 to 5 for somebody else. So we threw ourselves in 2 feet first and just started calling potential clients, candidates, and just asking them, okay, look, how does this all work? Where do you fit in? Putting it together, knowing that our recruitment skills would allow us to find the best people. I was kind of like, hey, if I can find a US guy who's in New Delhi to travel to the Philippines to take a project over there, I can find, say, a project manager who's already in the States to do a remote job in the States. So I was like, it's almost easier than what we were doing previously. And when speaking to business owners and industry leaders who were running these businesses, I shared my story with them, and naturally they started telling me stories of how they had weathered the storm. And I was like, oh my God, I am hearing some real insights here. So I just thought it would be a good idea to perhaps start a podcast around that, to share these stories, because quite naturally, as a recruitment individual, you're always forever the middleman. There's the candidates, there's the clients. Everyone wants to know what's going on elsewhere in the market. So I was like, this could be valuable to so many people, and particularly with coronavirus and what's going on. I was just like, let's do it. So I didn't really know much about the industry. I'm quite open to say that, I'm not a clinical research professional, but I am a recruitment professional. I can join the dots together. But let's start sharing some of these stories. So I'd often scan LinkedIn, looking for interesting profiles, reach out to CEOs and just say, hey, look, I'm starting a podcast. I want to interview people to share their stories of personal and professional growth. Would you be interested to share your own story? And the uptake was just unbelievable. And it just became almost a side gig. And that's how I came across yourself, Christina, wasn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Sorry, I was sneezing while you were talking, so I muted myself so that everybody didn't hear the blow up of my sneezing, because I sneeze multiple times. Yes, that's how you came across my profile. And we spoke first. We had a precursory call, and we got to talk about some of the things that we were going to talk about on your podcast. And then I got to learn about you. And I thought, wow, you know what? This would be awesome to have you on my show as well, so that you can talk about yourself. Because when you're a podcast person, you have a tendency of talking, you invite guests on to talk about them. Of course, you share your experiences, right? But as it relates to them. So I was so excited to be on your podcast. And I have to tell you, I kind of alluded to this before we got on, because I wanted to tell you live. The feedback that I've gotten on your podcast, being on your podcast, first off, I know a lot of viewers have viewed it. We also, how we put everything on the CD website as well. So we had like cross promotion going on back and forth. But I have to tell you, I had people reaching out to me on Facebook and other social media platforms saying, wow, Christina, I had no idea that you had gone through this domestic violence situation. Thank you so much for sharing. It's given me strength. And, we're so appreciative that James found you, because you may not have disclosed that unless it was on your show, which, sometimes I talk about it on my show, but not like I talked about it on your show. So I wanted to thank you again for having me on, because your intention of sharing people's stories and helping people feel better about their situations and feeling empowered and supported is what's happening with your podcast. And I can personally speak about it myself as an outcome, so to speak, if you want to talk in clinical terms.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to hear that feedback, because often I'll view the profile and something will spark my interest. And I'm just like, I need to find out more about this particular individual. I think I don't know whether it's intrigue or just whether I'm just outright nosy. But I'm kind of like, let's reach out. The worst that anyone can ever say is no, I'm not interested. But fortunately, everyone in the world of clinical research has just been really positive about it. And they've said, look, you know, you're doing a great thing. We don't really come across any other recruiters that are doing this. So it's been really good. But I remember when I first jumped on the call with you, I was just like, wow, I don't really know what to say here. I remember, you know, I always do a pre-screening call to give people the heads up and try to put people at ease. I guess partly that's what I do as a job is, you know, try to get people to relax anyway. And I just remember going in to speak to my partner, Lucy, and was just like, wow, you wait until you listen to this episode. You are just going to be amazed. And she was just like, okay, I've got to, you know, got to see this. And so no, I'm really pleased that you've had such good feedback
Yes.
on it. And, you know that I'm a big positivity type of guy, you know, hence, you know, why I'm in the world of clinical research recruitment now is, you know, there was an obstacle there, but you can always, it's how you view it. And often they can become opportunities if you just don't shut down and go into a shell.
Yes.
Because, you know, that was probably the only other option. And there was not a hope in hell that that's what I was going to do. So I was just kind of like, let's do it. And I think it's a year on now since I started the podcast. And yeah, it's going well. The feedback has been great. And yeah, to hear your feedback has been good also. It's fantastic.
It was awesome, you know, and one of the things that I like is that, you know, one of the things I do, and I know you do, is that we always look for a common thread between our guests. And so our common thread, so in case people haven't watched your show and they're just learning about you today through my show, is the fact that we have the agility to just keep pushing ahead, right? We just get back up. The fact that you're a boxer, you know, you were semi-pro, is pretty amazing. And, you know, I'm not semi-pro, but, you know, I box also, you know, and so we had a lot of things in common, just like the fact that we've tried new things. We've branched out in our careers. We weren't afraid during COVID to launch new things. What you did, what I did with Spectral, all of these things happened during, you know, COVID, right? When people were having really bad times, yes, we too were having bad times, but we turned those bad times into something positive. You went ahead forward on your endeavors. I did also. And now look at us. It's 2021. It's almost the close of the year. And look at all the amazing things that you have accomplished this year. And I love your positivity.
Crazy. It's just crazy. And I think everyone that comes on, certainly onto my show, there is that common theme with pretty much everyone. Everyone's quite big on, you know, what you put out, you'll get back, etc., which is
the universe.
Exactly why I'm sitting here. You know, case in point, you know, that's exactly why I'm sitting here, because I reached out to you. You're kind of returning the favor to have me on your show. But that is the big thing with everyone that has been involved.
I wouldn't say it's a favor. You deserve it. You know, like a favor would be just trying to give somebody a gimme, right? You're more than a gimme, James. You deserve it because, you know, the things you do for people and just even the things that you've done for me, having me on your show, you deserve it in return. You, like you said earlier about putting it out into the universe, that I believe the same thing. And I believe that the more true we are to ourselves and to the others, it will come to you in, you know, 100-fold, right? Or 1,000,000-fold, depending upon how big you shoot for that star. And that's you. You know, you're that person, in my opinion, my humble opinion.
And you know what? Sometimes, Christine, it doesn't happen overnight, does it? You know,
no.
My partner and I are always saying, look, there's a season to sow, there's a season to reap. And sometimes you are grinding away, and you're like, when am I ever going to catch a break? And then all of a sudden, things just kind of start falling on your lap and you start getting lucky. But all it is really is that compound effect of doing the right thing day in, day out, week in, week out, you know, month in, month out, for however long it takes. You know, sometimes some people get success really early on in their in life or in business. Other people, it takes a long time. I remember when we first started the business, I went for like 6 months, like no business whatsoever. And I was worried about paying the mortgage, and just didn't know what we was going to do. Was shopping for groceries and thinking, do I buy 2 of these or do I just get one? Because it was getting that bad. And then all of a sudden, I got a big tax return from my previous earnings. I was like, oh, wow, like this is amazing. I did not know that I had this. And probably, I don't know, a little bit naively, perhaps, rather than bank it for the business, my partner and I were like, we need a break. Let's book a villa. So we booked a villa in Europe and just took the whole family out and just spent that money because we didn't know that we had it. So it was like, what it'll be.
Right.
And then lo and behold, when we were on that vacation, we had like several deals come in and we were like, it's worked. Kind of that law of attraction and doing a good thing has kind of repaid us a bit of karma, if you like. And then from there, the business just went from strength to strength. So I think sometimes you don't always know that things are going to turn out all right. But if you just keep doing the right thing, they often do. Is that your dog that is joining us on the show?
Yes, this is Frank. You can't really see his face here because he's like got it down. He I don't know, he was getting ready to bark. So I didn't want, I was like, whoop, I pulled him before he could kind of go off on a tangent. But he's like, I don't know if you have any pets, but he's a golden doodle. In my opinion, these doodles, when they're mixed, like a labradoodle, a golden doodle, a schnoodle, they're hypoallergenic and they're the sweetest. Like he's my third doodle since 2010. And I just love him. He came home. Actually, it's his anniversary with us yesterday. He came home with us 3 years ago in 2018. And so he is just like the most sweetest dog. And during COVID, he's been home, with me because I don't work in an office space anymore. So he's in my office.
Work colleague. Well, look, the fact that Frank's joined us on the show will be a massive plus for my mum because she occasionally listens to my podcast, but sometimes if it's a bit sciencey, she's like, James, I can't listen to all of that. I'm like, oh, cheers, mum. But now that there's a dog involved, she's a huge animal lover. She's got dogs, horses,
That's awesome.
I'll tell her this and she'll be like, oh, well, I'll tune in for that one just for the dog.
Yeah, because he looks like a stuffed animal, he's like Fozzie Bear kind of. So
yeah, she'll be a big fan.
And you know what? I don't think he's appeared in any of my other podcasts so far. So you're the first one. So make sure you tell her that.
Oh, well, it's always good. When looking at LinkedIn and any other social networks, dogs and animal are always fantastic for the algorithm normally.
Oh, so, for sure. And we're launching.
We're getting huge ratings.
Yes. And here's the thing too, is we're launching our pet line for Avum. And so Frank takes our CBD every day. He takes tincture in his food. And then he gets a little doggy treat at nighttime for him to help him with sleep and stuff. He has a little bit of anxiety. So we give him, our CBD and it works really, really well. So not that I'm like trying to plug it. I did not
even know that was a thing.
Yes.
CBD for dogs.
Yes, CBD and for cats. So we have a dog and cat pet line. I just proofed everything last night, sent it off to our marketing team. They're going to start pushing this out. So it'll be on the Avum website soon. And, Frank takes it every day. He's another, he's an example of what we do.
Wow. What about, I've got to ask for my mum while I've got you here on the line. What about horses? Is it going to?
Oh, yes. Yes,
really?
yes. So as a matter of fact, we're interviewing someone to come. I swear to God, it just happened yesterday. I called one of my friends because we need another administrative support person. And my friend, incidentally, she has horses and she rides them. She trains. She's been doing this for years. So I called her and I said, hey, what's up with that girl that was looking for a job? Because now I have a need and I really need to talk with her. Turns out this young lady has a horse background and is really into horse care. So I thought, this is kind of interesting because we're dropping the pet line, as soon as possible. And I talked to my partner about it, and he was like, this is a great thing. If she can do what she says she can, we'll interview her and see, perhaps, we can have her help us with the horse, the dogs, and everything else. So that is our aspiration to do so. So it's funny you asked me that, because see how it happens? It just happens.
Yeah, no, my mum will honestly be so interested in that. If you were to ever go into her sort of field where she keeps her horses, there's all sorts of things like cones, road signs, because the horses, get anxious as well and tend to rear up sometimes. So she's always trying to desensitize them to something, which often I'm kind of like, Mum, are you just going mad? But she's like, no, James, this is how I need to do it. But she will certainly be interested in that. So
yes,
that'll be tonight's phone call.
Yes. That's awesome. And once we start really getting into it, I'll let you know, so that if we can help your mom's horse, I would be happy to do so. We'd be happy to, because we're working in the UK. So yes. I would just drop it right to, directly over to you.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that would be an amazing help. She would love something like that.
That's
again, like me, she probably doesn't even know that these things exist.
I know. It's like every time you turn around, something's popping up in our industry. There's there's water, all kinds of things, but we try, how we are. We try to stay medically vertically aligned. We're not rec focused. So, in my opinion, we make medicine, transdermal patches, lozenges. We now have this stuff in the pet side that we're going to continue to work on. But yeah, it's important for us to stay medically focused and stay away from the rec side.
Yeah.
You got to tell her how calm he is. Like, just look how calm he is. He's just sitting here hanging out. And he buries his nose into my shirt and he sniffs. he knows your perfumes and stuff. Sorry.
I like it a lot.
I didn't expect him to come up today. He usually hangs out down below, but I didn't want him to start barking and things. So I pulled him back so he didn't go to the window to bark at another dog or somebody.
No worries. Well, this is the working from home flexibility dream, isn't it? For me, it's the fact that, my son is kind of 20 meters away in the house. I can go into the loo.
Yes.
Speak to him quickly. Play with his cars. It's normally daddy, your turn, lay on the floor, play with this. But, I think I didn't know that I would miss that sort of thing until you experience it.
Right.
I've since spoken to some of my mates who are, still working in the city. I'm like, I just don't know how I could do that now. It's just such a different life that I live.
Right. It's
a remote business.
Right. It's just not the same anymore, right? Everything is so different. The way we live our lives, the way we do our business, even how we shop. Shopping is different now, right? A lot is more done virtually on the internet than anything before. We used to go shopping outdoors or shopping in malls and such and whatever. Now everything is virtual. You buy everything. Like Amazon's business went, quadruple fold.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a big shopper. I try to avoid it as much as I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly the online stuff, if I need anything, one click and
it's
right up my street.
It's exactly right. That's where it's all at now. So, I think that what you've done with your business, the versatility factor, the fact that you pivoted quickly and then also started the podcast at the same time, I think is pretty amazing, because look at the success story you have now, right? This is
it
just
often feels like I'm working a couple of jobs, which technically I am, but it's, the podcast doesn't ever feel like a job, which is fantastic. And business has started to pick up. And I think just being open and transparent with people and sharing our story has almost allowed them to be like, okay, James is a real person. He's running a real business. They've got good values, and actually they're good at what they do. Has put us in a position to win, exclusive business, retained business. And it's been, a nice pat on the back. And, from a lot of our clients who have backed us, to the point where, we're now looking to hire more staff ourselves. So
that's fantastic.
It feels good, Christine. I'm not going to lie. It feels good.
That's fantastic. And you deserve it, because it was work hard. You worked hard, you played hard, you got it done. You continue to go. You haven't said, well, this is good enough. No, it's not good enough. You're going to hire more people. You're going to keep expanding. This is your nugget now. And also you've learned that, I know I have, that this pandemic can cause, a lot of craziness, and you've got to kind of always be thinking ahead. Like, can this survive? Can we survive a pandemic? Because we never had to think about stuff like this before. We never thought this would ever happen, right? Like, who would have thought that we would have been in a lockdown across the world and that people were dying in the millions? Like, holy cow. And we're still not out of it. We're still in the midst of it. The Delta.
It was such a weird, surreal time, wasn't it? And you just, looking back at it now, it's hard to remember or imagine how it was, because certainly in the UK and London, I was away this weekend with my son, my partner, and her sister and younger daughter as well, kind of for an activity weekend, and it felt like normal. It was busy. There was very few masks in sight, if any, which kind of makes you worry, because coronavirus is still very much here. People are still dying, but in a way, I liked the fact that it was almost just a weekend of normality. Was fantastic,
right?
I couldn't knock it, and can't complain. It's it's each to their own to an extent, with how you tackle it, whether you wear a mask or not. But it was just reminded me of what everyone was like last year, where people would cross the street just so that you didn't
away from them
a couple of meters past you, whereas now it's kind of everyone's just, it seems to be getting forgotten somewhat. I mean, that's the worry with the pandemic side of things, is that as time goes on, people's upkeep of the good intentions and things tends to lack. Right.
And we have not relaxed anything in my household. We're still on high alert. We're very careful. I wear a mask when I go to the school bus stop to pick Christian up from school. I was in Pittsburgh initiating the diabetic neuropathy study. So that opened up, and we enrolled our first subject on Monday. So that was a big deal. So I flew to Pittsburgh because that's 5 hours away. Then I flew to Memphis this weekend, and people are just acting like there's whatever, no mask and stuff. And I'm like, listen, we've got to be vigilant. We can't.
It's crazy, because one of our guys, again, we're remote. We've embraced it. One of our guys is actually, he's working for us, but he's also on a scholarship to play basketball in New York.
Oh, cool.
So he's doing as many hours as he can on the business side of things. He's still active there, but we're kind of like, look, if you're going to be the next NBA superstar, you just keep going with that, but just don't forget us about it when you're big time.
Yes, that's right.
And he was, I had a Zoom call with him last week, and he was, still fully masked. He was like, we have to wear the mask everywhere. And, it's just interesting to find out how different states, different countries are still managing it. So.
You're right. The word states there is the truth, right? Every state is operating independently. It's almost like cannabis. That's how I feel, and because I work in cannabis full time and I do research, I'm, it's the same concept to me. So for me with the mask stuff, it's just like cannabis. Like, listen, I'm just going to do what I need to do to stay safe. And I don't care if people yell at me because I have a mask on, because people yell. Like, leave me alone. I'm not messing with you. At least, I'm trying to not pass it, I'm being conscientious about what I'm doing with myself, just leave me alone. But that's definitely been something that's been difficult, I think, for everybody across the world, is just trying to navigate across these rules and make sure you don't get into fights with people, because people get very upset. People are very upset nowadays. It's not the same world we live in that we used to live in before.
You can touch a nerve, can't you? Just talking about people's opinions. It's got as bad as politics,
Exactly.
You talk about it and, what could be an ordinary conversation. And, I'm happy for people to have their views, but sometimes you say something and then all of a sudden you can see the conversation just deteriorating into an argument. And you're just like, no, just keep me away from this. I do not need this aggravation.
No, right. I don't want to get in fights.
Move on from that one.
Yeah. Like, no, I don't respond to things I see in social media or anything. Nope, nothing. I don't want to be involved in any of that stuff. Like, we've got to keep it on the up and up, because, we're trying to do things to help people. We don't want to deter people from listening to us because they might disagree with something that we stupidly responded to. So I don't respond. I stay out of it. Unless you call me out directly and ask me my opinion, I stay quiet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, having an opinion is essential in life, and
exactly.
You're never going to please all of the people all of the time.
That's right.
But you don't need to go out there picking fights.
That's right.
Is kind of the thing. I'm just so far beyond that. It's just unreal. It's just not for me. But for now, we've hit October. I know you've got your pumpkins out already.
Yes.
I'm taking my son pumpkin picking this weekend.
So awesome.
Awesome and very muddy.
Yes.
Probably because British weather, it's been raining all week.
God.
And then it's the lead up to the holidays. So all good, What a time to be alive, really.
That's right. That's right.
My advice is stop watching so much news and the negativity and just focus on what's going well.
Absolutely. That's right. And if all else fails, get a golden doodle.
There you go. Yeah.
So with that, you and I could talk forever. Frank's like, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's trying to take over the podcast now. He's trying to get in the seat. I don't know what he's doing, but there he goes. Thank God. So I think that we'll probably come to an end. So that way our episode isn't too long, but you should definitely come back on so we could check in as to see what happens with your business, after Q1 of next year, because I think both of us will have some things to report on, coming into the new year. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure, Christina. Pleasure indeed.
Okay, my friends. Well, remember, we are the same. I am Christina DiArcangelo. Thank you again.